when they go. Isn't that wonderful? I would never miss a game, but I got to be here.
Me too. I'm going to start now because we're on TV. But Dave's coming. He's on the phone.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
So I went to page by page.
All right, good evening. I call this meeting to order. This is a special City Council meeting of April 26, 2017. The time is 7 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Bliss.
I'm here.
Councilman Clark.
Present.
Councilman Corbett.
Here.
Councilman Gettings.
Here.
Councilwoman Scott. Here. Councilman Soltis. Mayor Harwell.
Yes, I'm here. Mr. Soltis is on his way, so there's no need to excuse him at this point. Okay. First on the agenda is meeting open to the public. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to address City Council? Now is the opportunity. Okay, if you'd like to speak, for the folks at home, please use the microphone next to Councilman Corbett. And it would be helpful but not required if you give us your name, address, and affiliation. But welcome, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ray Gilson. I reside at 18046 Tatara Drive in Macomb. I'm the president for the Firefighters Union here in Madison Heights. I took over back in September, so I'm just getting my feet wet with everything here. You may have noticed our presence a lot more around the city at various meetings in recent months. We're trying to do our part and educate ourselves with all aspects of how the city operates and where they are with things today. I want to start out by thanking council and everyone involved for making the paramedic ALS engines priority for the upcoming year. Like the C&G article stated earlier in the week, the run volume since ALS had started out in '99 has been up by 50%. By making our engines ALS, that could potentially literally save someone's life in the circumstances that we face today. The equipment is crucial when we do not have ambulance available, which happens often for us. This budget year, we hope to see additional staffing added. I cannot stress enough how critically low we are with staffing. Just in the short 5 years that I have been here, I have personally seen a 27% increase in run volume. We have been doing all this with no additional staffing. Without an increase in our daily minimum staffing, the ALS engine that would be at Station 2 would sit in the station with no one to operate far too often. This truck would have critical equipment for medicals and fire runs as well. On behalf of our local, I'd love the opportunity to discuss with everyone here tonight options that we could potentially have to help alleviate some of the burdens we have each day with their manning. We have several ideas we'd love to share, so anytime you guys are willing to sit and talk and go over ideas, we'd be more than happy to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else from the public like to address City Council? Our meeting's open to the public. I see no one else has asked to be recognized, so we'll go to our order of business. We have a presentation from the city manager for the 2017-18 proposed budget and a review of the city manager, from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council, department heads, members of the public. I am pleased to propose to Council our financial plan for next year in the form of the fiscal 2018 budget. Before getting started, I'd like to commend the work of the Deputy City Manager, department heads, and staff for an excellent effort in preparing a plan that continues to maintain existing services within limited revenues. I would also like to thank Council for their feedback and direction as part of the financial outlook, goal-setting process, and capital improvement plan, which are important parts of the budget development process. The proposed budget is presented in accordance with a detailed calendar that is contained in the policy document. That's the thicker book for public's benefit. Last fall, the annual budget process for 2018 formally began with the development of the long-range financial outlook presented to Council in November. Major capital items over $30,000 are included in the city's 5-year capital improvement plan, or CIP, which was presented to Council in January. Between November and March, Council and staff determined the city's focus for 2018 through the development and adoption of citywide goals. Preparation of the operating budget began in January following the goal plan adoption. And the city manager and deputy city manager and staff finalized the proposed budget, which was submitted to Council on April 6th. The remaining highlights of the budget calendar include tonight's budget presentation and the workshop, and the adoption of the budget and tax levy, which is scheduled to take place on the second Monday in May, which this year is May 8th. In our budget presentation today, we plan to spend a few minutes discussing the guiding principles used in developing the budget, including the approved budget process, the financial challenges we continue to face, significant changes that are included in the budget, and a summary of the overall proposed fiscal 2018 budget. Following this detailed discussion, we will briefly touch on other funds, including the proposed changes to the water and sewer rate structure for 2018. In preparing the budget, the goals and the financial policies adopted by Council guided our process. First, we have conservatively estimated revenues and expenditures, including a thorough review of each department with the respective department head and a careful and updated analysis of projected revenues. Second, we balanced each special millage with the applicable expenses, focusing on millage reserves and prioritized needed projects. Third, we analyzed projected fund balance levels and avoided the use of fund balance to cover ongoing expenditures such as salaries, allowing us to maintain the updated targeted fund balance. And fourth, we reviewed taxes and fees being charged to our residents and businesses to make sure that they remain reasonable. As an important ingredient of the budget, City Council and staff focused on the development of citywide goals which were adopted by Council in March for fiscal 2018. This slide presents a summary of the 25 adopted goals, which are divided into 4 major categories. All of the adopted goals are referenced in the budget policy document. Goals which require funding are indicated on the slide. You'll see them with a $sign, and funding has been included in the proposed line item budget to accomplish these goals. I won't read each of these items, but will point out several noteworthy examples, including adding a police officer position for the Troy Special Investigations Unit, upgrading our frontline fire engines from basic to advanced life support, improving pedestrian and traffic safety along DeQuinder between 11 and 13-mile roads, establishing a right-of-way tree replacement program, retaining and expanding available portable restrooms in our parks, and increasing library services, including a young adult book club and training for electronic book options. A complete list of all of the approved goals is included in the budget document and is available online. Melissa will now continue the presentation with a discussion of our financial challenges.
Looking ahead into fiscal 2018, we continue to see encouraging signs of economic recovery, both statewide and locally. While this trend is gradually lessening the budgetary restraints on the city, we continue to face 4 major financial challenges that restrict the city's ability to keep up with growth and the expectations to restore services and staff that were reduced during the Great Recession from 2008 to 2015. These continued challenges are the overall statewide municipal funding model, the reduction of the city's tax base due to personal property tax reform, the lack of significant increases in state revenue sharing, the legacy costs for pension and other post-employment benefits, namely retiree health care. These challenges have hindered the city year after year and will continue to cause funding problems until the state legislature makes significant reforms to the structure of city funding and legacy costs, such as eliminating or offsetting the drastic cumulative effect of the Headley Amendment and Proposal A caps on taxable value. The number one long-term financial challenge facing most municipalities in the state of Michigan is the current state tax structure. Under the state Headley Amendment and Proposal A, growth in property tax values is limited at 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. This forces the city to share in the financial burden during the tough times, but it doesn't allow for the local governments to share in the prosperity of the good times. In fiscal 2018, Madison Heights real property taxable values increased by 2.7%, and personal property taxable value decreased by 11.3% from the prior year. Overall, taxable value increased by only 0.8%. This hampers our ability to provide services and create new initiatives to make our city a better place to live. Due to millage adjustments, general fund property tax revenues are projected to increase by 2% in fiscal 2018. In addition to the overall problem of Michigan's broken municipal funding model, the second financial challenge facing Madison Heights and other Michigan municipalities is the decline in personal property taxes, or PPT, due to the personal property tax reforms passed by the state. Starting in 2014, personal property taxes are not assessed on parcels that have $80,000 or less in personal property. And in 2016, taxes were also eliminated on all eligible manufacturing personal property, known as EMPP. EMPP, acquired prior to 2006 and after 2012, is now fully exempt from property taxes. And exemptions of EMPP purchased between 2006 and 2012 will be phased in over the next 7 years. In Madison Heights, this latest implementation of personal property tax reform has reduced our taxable value for personal property over 75%, resulting in a reduction of property taxes by over $2.5 million. Fortunately, the tax reform law includes reimbursement of this loss in its entirety. However, to date, the city has received only $2 million in new stabilization revenue, or 79% of the lost PPT revenue. The third major financial issue also relates to long-term revenue loss imposed on the city from the state of Michigan through state revenue sharing. According to the Michigan Municipal League's website, SaveMyCity.org, the city has lost over $11 million in revenue sharing payments from the time period of fiscal 2003 to 2015. During this same period, the state's revenues have increased by almost 29%. But revenues the state provided to local governments for services like police, fire, recreation have decreased by more than 56%. As illustrated on this chart from the Save My City website, Michigan is the only state to have experienced a decrease in general municipal revenue from 2002 to 2012. State shared revenue is the city's second largest revenue source, budgeted at $2.8 million, or 10% of general fund revenue. As illustrated on this chart, the city has not been close to full funding of state revenue sharing since 2003. Ben will now continue the discussion of financial challenges.
Addressing the issue of legacy cost for pension and retiree health care remains a fourth central financial challenge for the city. As of June 30, 2016, the unfunded liabilities for pension and retiree health care stood at $46.6 million and $75.4 million, respectively, for a total unfunded liability of $122 million. In September 2016, the city issued $15.25 million in pension obligation bonds to fully fund the general employee's pension, with a projected savings of $4 million over the next 16 years. This brought the general pension liability to zero, with the only required payments being for each year's normal cost, and normal cost is defined as the pension cost earned by the active employees in the current year. The 2018 budget includes the $3.1 million actuarially required contribution for all pensions, as well as a planned contribution to other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, of $3.8 million, totaling $6.9 million. This increase is directly related to a change in the mortality table for members of the police and fire pension system. The required police and fire pension contribution will necessitate an increase in the millage that supports this contribution and will be discussed in detail later. Please note that this contribution is in addition to the debt payments for the recently issued pension obligation bonds for general employee pensions. For fiscal 2018, there are two major proposed changes to the millage rate. As mentioned on the previous slide, the city's millage rate for police and fire pension is increasing from 5.86 mils to 6.96 mils to cover the actuarially required pension contributions. In addition, this millage will result in the same amount as last year going toward the city's calculated annual contribution for OPEB, covering 57.8% of the recommended contribution. The second change relates to the continued restructuring of the water, sewer, and stormwater rates. In fiscal 2018, we have budgeted to remove the debt for the George W. Kuhn Drain Project from the rate structure, applying it instead as a millage on the summer tax bills. A number of municipalities use this methodology, which is the preferred approach for collecting the debt and is allowed under Chapter 20 of the Michigan Drain Code. The new millage, called a Chapter 20 drain debt, will be 1.1562 mils in fiscal 2018. One of the city's 11 proposed millages, the fire station's bond millage, is being reduced in order to match the bond payment schedule. As shown and broken down on the following slide, the average home with a taxable value of $34,340 will see an additional $77 in city taxes in the summer, as well as a result of these changes in millage. Later in the presentation, we will discuss the decrease in the water and sewer rate related to moving the Chapter 20 debt from the sewer rate structure. This chart shows the city's tax distribution for the 10,082 single-family homes and condominiums in Madison Heights. For fiscal 2018, the average home market value is $97,400 with a taxable value of $34,340 and an average tax bill of $868 for city services. Melissa will now conclude the discussion of financial challenges.
As of June 30th, 2017, the city will be at 22.7% of the city's debt limit of $77.6 million, which is based on 10% of the assessed valuation. The city has general obligation bonds outstanding in the amount of $17.6 million. The city is also responsible for our share of 8 bonds related to the George W. Kuhn Drain Project, for a total of $5.6 million. These bonds, which are scheduled for final payment in the year 2029, are not counted towards the debt limit. The city's latest government bond rating occurred in June 2016, when the city secured a rating from Standard & Poor's, also known as S&P, for the issuance of general obligation bonds. S&P assigned a AA- stable underlying rating, describing the city as having strong management with good financial policies and practices under the financial management assessment methodology, adequate budgetary performance, including operating surpluses in the general fund and at the total government level, and very strong liquidity. The fiscal 2018 budget reflects a total net increase of 3.1 full-time equivalencies, or FTEs. This increase is due to hiring a new part-time probationary officer at the court, which coincides with the decreasing budgeted hours of 2 current part-time probationary officers, increasing the hours of the part-time office assistants in the DPS and clerk's office, adding a new part-time recreation intern, which is an adopted city goal, incorporating the part-time social media intern position into our personnel schedule, and adding a new full-time police officer position to accomplish the adopted goal of participating in the Troy Special Investigations Unit. Ben will now continue the discussion of significant budget changes.
Included in the fiscal 2018 proposed budget are several significant changes from past fiscal years. The first set of changes pertains to our water and sewer rate structure. First, as shown in the first line in this slide under reduced utility rates, the water rate will decrease in fiscal 2018 by 10.3%, from $3.39 per unit to $3.04 per unit. Sewer rates will decrease 10.1% from $3.83 per unit to $3.44 per unit. The stormwater rate is charged per equivalent residential unit, or ERU, and is currently $5.17 per statement, billed quarterly for residential and monthly for commercial. In fiscal 2018, this will change to $11.37 per quarter for all billing types. Also, the quarterly $3 meter replacement charge is being eliminated, along with the flat rate service charge for our commercial accounts. Second, in order to more accurately and properly charge for the city's principal and interest debt service payments for the George W. Kuhn Drainage District improvements, the fiscal 2018 budget reflects moving the payment from the Water and Sewer Fund to the new millage as allowed under Chapter 20 of Public Act 40 of 1956. The net effect of this move to the city is zero, but each property owner will be affected differently based on their water and sewer usage and the taxable value of their home. For the example home cited earlier that has a taxable value of $34,340, if we assume a quarterly water usage of 12 units and a stormwater ERU of 1.072, The annual water and sewer bill in fiscal 2016 would have been $419.52, and it would have decreased by 9.3% to $380.73 in fiscal 2017. In fiscal 2018, this homeowner will pay $359.79 in water and sewer charges and a Chapter 20 drain millage amount of $39.70, resulting in a net increase of $18.77 under the new methodology. But it is important to note that over the 2-year stormwater adjustment period, this homeowner's total bill will decrease by 4.8%, and that's factoring in the new drain debt millage. The fiscal 2018 budget also reflects an increase in required pension contributions. In fiscal 2017, the police and fire pension required contribution was budgeted to be $2,549,000. For fiscal 2018, the required amount has increased to $2,824,000 based on actuarial mortality table changes that reflect increased life expectancy. Council will also note a new pension obligation bond department in the fiscal 2018 general fund budget to account for the principal and interest payments on the recently issued pension obligation bonds. To offset this expense, all pension contributions for general employees have been reduced to the normal cost for the fiscal year, and again, the normal cost is the pension cost earned by the active employees in that current year only. The total net effect on the budget for all pension changes equals a savings of over $54,000 as compared to fiscal 2017. Last, we have established a new internal service fund for the Department of Public Services employees' personnel cost allocation. In the past, all DPS employees were allocated by a fixed amount to each DPS division in the city where they regularly perform tasks. Through the new internal service fund, 100% of all personnel for DPS employees will be charged to this fund, and the services will be allocated monthly to each division based on the actual task performed and tracked in the work order system. This results in the addition of a DPS charge under other services and charges. This change will also assist with our accounting to comply with reporting requirements under Public Act 51, which pertains to our state gas and weight tax road allocations. The proposed fiscal 2018 budget was balanced through the utilization of $327,000 of fund balance. As of June 30, 2016, the general fund unreserved fund balance was $8.4 million and is estimated to be $5.9 million at June 30, 2017. Based on the budgeted use of fund balance, the city projects that the fund balance will be $5.6 million at the end of fiscal 2018, or just at 16% plus 1 year of debt payments. And this is in compliance with Council's approved financial policies that direct staff to keep the fund balance equal to or above 16% of our regular operating expenses plus 1 year of debt service payments. The total budget for fiscal 2018 equates to $51.3 million and includes funding of operating and capital purposes for 13 appropriated funds. This amount represents a $1,074,000 or 2% decrease from the prior year amended budget. The operating budget is projected to decrease by $840,000 or 1.9%, while the capital budget decreases by $233,000 or 2.6%. Next, Melissa will review general fund capital outlay expenditures.
Fiscal year 2018 capital outlay purchases total $8.6 million for all funds, including $1.3 million for the general fund. Of the general fund purchases, 47.8%, or $574,000, are funded through dedicated millages, including proposals V3, L, and the senior millage. The general fund purchases are not funded through dedicated millages, include the second phase of the underground storage tanks located behind the police department building, a Microsoft Exchange server, upgrading the 2 fire engines from basic to advanced life support, which is a city goal, 2 chest compression systems for the fire department, phase 1 funding of an ambulance rescue vehicle, Fire Station 2 parking lot improvements and apparatus room floor resurfacing, a Toolcat utility vehicle for the Streets Division, a roof replacement at the Nature Center, replacement of aging swing sets throughout the city parks, replacement of a Wildwood Parks playscape, and pavement and parking lot replacement at Ambassador Park. Other funds include a capital outlay of $7.3 million. The majority of this amount, or $3.4 million, is budgeted for road rehabilitation and reconstruction projects, including Proposal R2 dedicated millage projects, major road sectional work, and the sidewalk repair and gap program. The fiscal 2018 budget includes a continuation of the water main replacements associated with Proposal R3 road projects as $707,000 and non-R3 water main for $592,000. These water mains are being funded through a use of fund reserves. Other capital purchases that are included in the budget are $206,000 as a local match for a $1 million grant-funded sanitary sewer inspection and rehabilitation program, the final phase of the underground storage tanks located behind the Department of Public Services, replacement of the salt dome structure, repairs and replacement to the Department of Public Services parking lot, a utility locator, an updated Neptune collector for the automatic meter reading system, and a sewer camera trailer. The fiscal 2018 budget also includes $1 million for District 2, or Year 2, of a 4-year program for the citywide replacement of water meters, which were last replaced between 1995 and 1997 and are at the end of their useful service life. District 2 will cover the area between 11 and 12-mile roads. Money has been reserved to fund this project, with the first phase budgeted at $1 million and a total project cost estimated to be $3.9 million. Ben will now conclude the presentation with other funds.
The Major Street Fund is projected to be up by $267,000 or 15.6% in fiscal 2018. This is directly related to available revenues and road projects that are included in the budget from one year to the next. Rehabilitation work is being budgeted in fiscal 2018 for a total of $1.2 million. This includes sectional concrete replacement on East Lincoln from Wolverine to DeQuinder, 11 Mile from John R. to DeQuinder, Whitcomb from Barrington to DeQuinder, Stevenson Highway southbound from Girard to 12 Mile, Edward from Mandolin to Whitcomb, and Stevenson Highway turnarounds. The local street fund accounts for expenditures associated with the construction and maintenance needs of our local street network and can be divided into Proposal R2 road construction and non-R2 related expenditures. Fiscal 2018 is the final year of the Proposal R2 program. And as Council is well aware, the proposal text R3 tax revenue was approved by voters on August 2nd, 2016, and will expire in 10 years. The Proposal R2 road construction projects scheduled for this year include Dye from Lincoln to the south end for $150,000, Hales from 13 Mile to Winthrop for $501,000, and Lincoln sectional work at $314,000. Non-R2 repairs include sectional concrete replacement for Sherman and Montpelier. Regarding the Water and Sewer Fund, revenues are generated through user charges to residential and commercial customers. The proposed fiscal 2018 budget includes a combined increase from the Great Lakes Water Authority and Oakland County for 4.8%, or $372,000 per year for water, sewage, and stormwater treatment. Staff's proposed budget to Council includes the final phase in restructuring of the utility rates, including water, sewer, and stormwater. As discussed earlier, starting last year, or the current fiscal year we're in now, a new charge was established to separate stormwater from the sewer rate calculation based on the customer's equivalent residential unit, or ERU. At that time, the sewer rate decreased by approximately 25% from $5.10 to $3.83 per unit, and the new stormwater charge was implemented at $5.17 per ERU on each bill, quarterly for residential and monthly for commercial. The fiscal 2018 rate restructuring takes into account the wholesale rate increases to the city and includes the following adjustments: moving the debt service payment for the GWK drainage debt from the rate calculation and adding it to the millage rate of the city starting in the summer of 2017, equalizing the stormwater charge by moving it to the same quarterly rate as $11.37 for all customers regardless of residential or commercial, eliminating the meter replacement charge of $3 per quarter, and removing the fixed rate service charge for commercial and industrial customers. For the balance of tonight's meeting, the Deputy City Manager and I would like to answer any questions on the presentation and make use of the line item budget to walk through the general fund revenues and expenditures and other funds. Please keep in mind that if expenditures are increased or revenues decreased, I will need council's specific direction to rebalance the proposed budget to compensate for those council-requested changes. After today's budget workshop, the plan would be to move forward with the May 8th public hearing and adoption of the budget in compliance with our city charter requirement to adopt the budget no later than the third Monday in May. Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. Any comments or questions from council regarding the presentation, or should we begin with the line item budget? All right. Okay, so the next phase is where we march through page by page of the line item budget. City Council, it's your opportunity to speak up if you have any questions or comments or suggestions. I will announce the page number and generally what material we're talking about. So we'll begin at page 1. So at any time, please interrupt me and raise a question. Otherwise, I'll just keep marching page by page by page. And then at the end of that, it'll just be an open format for any questions. And like the manager said, if we have made adjustments, we'll need to figure out how to balance it. So we'll begin with general fund revenues on pages 1 through 3. All right, we'll go to page 4.
Your Honor.
Yes, please.
I was just going to, one more time, and I'm not looking for specificity, because it probably would be lost on me anyway. But the general fund is showing a negative $2,154,000. There are several components to that, as I understand it. That, as I understand, general fund is those funds that council has the maximum flexibility with. In other words, we can take on projects, new ideas, that sort of thing. But can you just briefly talk about the pluses and minuses that went into the negative $2,154,000? I know part of it is personal property tax. You've spoken about that. We've also reassigned funds. But
The $2,154,397, is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
That's actually the difference between the proposed budget of
Yes.
fiscal year 2018, so next year, and then the amended budget for this year.
right, and I'm just, if you can just briefly explain why that's a negative number.
We did a budget amendment for a contribution to OPEB would be one of the biggest changes to that. You'll actually see it on page 14, I believe. If you flip to page 14, you'll see under personnel services, it was $889, and then the proposed budget is only $112,000, so that's $700,000. And then you'll see this throughout all the departments. We did a budget amendment, I think it was around $1 million to contribute to OPEB. So that's one of the changes. I don't have all the rest of them highlighted of the differences. I would think that another major one, let me look it up, would be the contribution to the MERS pension, because we actually contributed to the MERS pension from July to September, and then we did the pension bonds, so we had to make payments for that as well as the issuance cost. And now in fiscal year 2018, we're just going to be paying the normal cost plus the bond payment. So that's a reduction as well.
There will be no bonus or extra payments on that. The whole point of the bond was to stabilize that figure.
Yes, and now our payments are going to consistently for the next 16 years be $1.1 million. So we have some budget stabilization in that. I can tell you what our pension payments are going to be 15 years from now, and I couldn't do that last year. The only difference is the normal cost, but that's only around $200,000. So those are the two significant changes that I know about in the general fund. The rest of it probably is contributable to capital outlay and that type of thing.
Personal property tax and capital outlay, yeah.
Okay, and in general, our revenue to the general fund was a negative. No, it was a positive 0.8. You had the positive number for revenue less the loss from the personal property tax, and then there were some transfers. And that's how we arrived at a 0.8% increase in our
And the 0.8% increase is actually in taxable value.
Right.
So there's a lot of numbers to consider. There's assessed value, there's taxable value, and then there's actually revenue. So there's a difference also between revenue, the fiscal year 2018 compared to actual, and the 2018 compared to amended budget. But the actual taxable value of the city only went up 0.8%. So that's actually less than the statewide inflation, which was 0.9%.
Okay. For now, thank you.
And one more figure. It's important what you're comparing to. For example, looking at a 2.7% decrease in revenue when you're comparing budget to budget. However, comparing budget to for actual, where it's a 1.5% increase, and really the percents impact more than the dollars, because totally we're talking about a difference of about $55,000, I think, in total. And one more piece of information, and I think council's asked this in previous years, of the 0.78% increase in taxable value, that's broken down by residential being up by 3.74 and commercial, industrial, and utility being down 1.59 to get that very status quo like 0.8%.
Thank you. Any other questions on general fund revenues from pages 1 through 3? All right, we'll begin with the appropriations out of the general fund, which start on page 4, the mayor and council budget. All right, page 5, expenditures for district court. Page 7, expenditures for city manager. Page 8, expenditures on elections. Page 9, city assessor. Page 10, legal. Page 11, city clerk. Page 12, human resources. Page 13, board of review. Page 14, general administration for general fund. We'll go to page 16 for finance. Page 17 for IT.
Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Just a question on this page. The exchange server is a very big line item on there at $15,000. I'd love for staff to outline the need for the exchange server and what will go into it.
Your Honor, Mr. Blackburn, our IT administrator from BPI, is here tonight, and I think he can answer that question.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor, Council. The Exchange server, we budgeted $15,000 for the replacement of that. What we're looking at doing is right-sizing that and getting an extended life cycle out of it. So forecasting out 5 to 6 years for that to be operational. When we migrated the Exchange server approximately 2 years ago, we repurposed an existing server that the city already had. We added some more memory and storage to it, and it's functioning reliably. Before that gets too old, however, we'd like to replace it before it fails. So we've budgeted the amount in the budget to cover that amount.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I know, we briefly talked about this at ITAC, and one of the suggestions to look into was SaaS providers like Google or Office 365, also with Microsoft. What did the analysis of those options yield that led us to wanting to replace the Exchange server?
Since the licensing that we have currently is only a couple years old, so a large portion of building an in-house Exchange server is the actual licensing of Microsoft Exchange and those clients. So rather than go to a cloud this early in that life cycle, we wanted to get some extended use out of those licenses.
And how long do you foresee this Exchange server lasting? You said 6 years earlier.
Yeah, we forecast 5 to 6 years is a reasonable life cycle of that piece of equipment.
Okay, and so this would put us in about 5 years having a discussion of transferring to a potential cloud provider or re-upping the licenses. Would that be
Yes.
correct? That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thanks. Any other questions for IT?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
In the larger report, there is a terminology used that I wanted a clarification. Move VPN to a central connect for higher security. What's VPN?
What page are you on, Mrs. Scott?
That's 116 of the large book.
VPN is, virtual private network, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry, man, I couldn't hear you.
Virtual private network.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's basically the technology we use as staff. The term is remoting in.
Okay.
It allows us to operate our machines if we need to from home or remotely, remote laptops. Gives us better productivity, more efficiency.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Just a question to piggyback off of that. Will our documents and what we access now be able to go through VPN for security's sake?
They can. If you'd like to utilize storage on the city systems here, we can grant you secure access through the VPN to access those files.
Yeah, I would really much like to see that, particularly with our confidential documents, just for the added security involved.
And we can arrange that.
Thanks. Any other IT questions?
One more thing, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
We're certainly, with the website redesign, we're certainly planning on SSL encryption to get to the council intranet web page, which contains those links, but I understand.
Thanks. Let's continue. More general fund expenditures on page 18, municipal building. Page 19, custodial and maintenance. Page 20, police expenditures. Page 22, fire expenditures. Page 24, community development. Yes, please.
I'm sorry. I'm behind.
No, that's
I'm trying
fine.
to coordinate the two books. I have a question for the police department.
All right, so we're back on page 20 of the line item.
Yes. There was referring to the overhead lighting on the 4 vehicles that we were adding. What is that used for, Chief? Overhead lighting. And what do we have now that's used?
So the overhead lighting that we have now is aged. It's about 10 years old, and the lights have fogged over. They're hard to see. The visibility at night, especially at the nighttime, is difficult. So what we have done is, over a course of 3 years, we're replacing 4 overhead systems for the police cars each year for the period of 3 years.
And can that lighting source be directed to whatever you're lighting up?
No, it's a fixed overhead system.
Okay.
However, the new lighting is tremendous compared to what we had before. It's a very high-tech LED lighting. We can make a lot of different pattern adjustments. And it has other safety features, too, with the newer overheads that for example, when the officer opens his car door and gets out of the car, right now they have the sweeping lights that are blinding. These new overheads are programmed so that shuts off, so the officer doesn't have the glaring light in his eyes. And it also has very intense lighting to light forward. And it also has use of directional arrows to assist with traffic control coming from behind the police vehicles.
Okay. I also am questioning the performance measures where you have sworn police FTEs per 1,000 population. Is that a typical or required amount of FTEs? I'm assuming that's full-time employees. In other words, is there a criteria of how many officers you would need compared to the population of your city?
If there is, I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
I don't know what that projection would be. We base it on how many officers we have at the time,
Right.
based on what we're budgeted for.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's an ideal comparison.
Your Honor, that's typically a benchmark that's used comparatively across municipalities, so I can't say that there's one ideal number that you want to get that up to or down to, but it's more a reference measure to see how we compare staffing-wise versus populations of other communities.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions for police, fire, or community development?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So, Chief, since you're up there,
Yes.
I see that the K-9 unit is going to be replaced.
Yes.
I think it's a great thing, but can you go into the details or the general summary of why that's necessary?
Yes, the K-9 vehicle is well past its life expectancy. Basically, it has over 100,000 miles on it. It's been in service for many years. It's time that the car is beginning to fail and becoming very costly. We just, not too long ago, had to replace the transmission in it. So what we are doing is we're upgrading to an SUV, just like the other vehicles that we have in the fleet, same cost as the other vehicles. However, we're adding one feature that we've wanted to do for quite some time but just haven't had the ability to do it. We are going to make the new police K-9 SUV capable of transporting prisoners. There is going to be a separate prisoner container system put in the rear of the vehicle, so there'll be no access of the dog. The dog won't be able to see the person, won't be able to do anything to the person, but it will make our vehicle much more adaptable to our fleet. In other words, right now when we have the K-9 officer out at the scene of a crime or of a traffic stop and they have to make an arrest, we have to have a second car go with them to do the transport. This will eliminate the need of having a second car, unless backup is needed, but the K-9 officer will be able to transport his own prisoners back to the station.
Mr. Mayor, and that's all being paid by the drug forfeiture?
It is being covered 100% by drug forfeiture funding.
One other question, if I could. I know I see that we have Youth Bureau that's kind of staying the same, that we're putting towards it.
Yes.
In the future, you think we should take that in consideration, maybe increase that? I mean, do you see a need that's increasing through the years, or?
At this point, I haven't seen a huge need for it. We've been able to cover the things that we've needed for the Youth Bureau. The biggest issue that we have with the Youth Bureau is, as it's always been, is just manpower allocation. But the line item budget seems to be pretty stable, and we've been able to do the things we've needed to do with the amount of money we have.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question of Chief Lolito for the fire department. Chief, I wonder if you could give us an estimate of what percentage of your runs are rescues rather than active fires?
Not having the
high percentage, isn't it?
Yeah, not having the report in front of me, I think we're up to like 88% are EMS-related calls.
And what do you attribute that to? More people becoming aware of the dangers?
I think in today's age, more people are relying on the EMS system for their primary care.
Okay.
We have an aging population in our city, so that puts more strain on our EMS system.
Right. Okay. And I was also wondering about the difference between BLS and ALS, basic life support and advanced life support. When you get a call in to the station, do you at that point determine whether they're going to need ALS, or do you have to go to the scene to assess it then?
Well, when the PSAP, when the 911 dispatcher gets the call, they sort of make a determination by asking certain questions, and they have a criteria which they'll follow, which then they'll relay on what units to dispatch. But typically, the majority of the time, the assessment is made on the scene. But the 911 dispatcher can give the information to give us a better idea of what resources are needed.
Oh, could you then maybe fill us in on the advantages that the ALS is going to give you? Like, what extra safety measures
Yes.
can you use?
Well, with the increase in call volume, there's more opportunities for a 911 to call in when other resources are out helping other residents. So what this will allow us to do is send in a fire engine with ALS equipment such as IVs, medication, heart monitors, so we can give those care at home while we wait for an ALS ambulance to come transport that patient. So now there won't be a delay in care for a patient that needs ALS service.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Chief, please, sorry to put you on the spot. 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago from tonight, I ran into all of our police officers who were on duty, and I think there were six firefighters working that day, and 2 of them went on a fire run to Hazel Park, and then the other 4 were manning rescues. And so, it gave me a little, concern, like, well, what happens? Because there's no one manning a fire engine in the city of Madison Heights. Can you explain what happens when that occurs, when our fire engines are in use in other cities, but maybe we get a call? And then just maybe more specifically, how often does that happen where we have no fire engine in the city of Madison Heights?
Well, a lot of it depends on the staffing levels at a certain day. The day you're speaking of, we were at 6 firefighters that day, so that limits us typically to 1 fire engine response because the other 2 ambulances are staffed. So Station 2's ambulance, at that point, when those personnel are gone out of Station 2, that ambulance sits there unstaffed. So in that circumstance, when the engine went to Hazel Park, we rely on neighboring communities to come assist us if we need us. Until that ambulance is clear, we also rely on off-duty firefighters to come in to staff a reserve engine or staff the ladder truck. But when we're at 8 firefighters or 7, there could be the other engine could be in service in the city.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I can ask Chief, when is the last time that we applied, I believe it's the FEMA grant, isn't it, that gives you extra fire staff?
Yes, that's the Assistant for Firefighter Grant that's put out by the Department of Homeland Security through FEMA. I believe it was 2 cycles ago. They called us a grant cycle. I think 2 cycles ago we put in for, at which we were unsuccessful at.
Okay. And at what point might we be available to do it again?
Well, every grant cycle we're eligible to apply. We do meet with the city manager and the financial director or deputy city manager. We do discuss if that's an option. So we do review that every year that the cycle does come up.
Okay, that's good. Well, I wish you luck on that.
Any other questions for fire?
Your Honor?
Yes.
It was mentioned earlier that roughly just under 90% of the runs are EMS, and when the ambulance runs happen, I'm just curious as to the percentage of firefighters that are both firefighter and EMT, and then how many ambulances are staffed by just EMT, just kind of what that breakdown is, so that way we have a better understanding as to, I guess, who's left holding the bag and whether or not that engine could go out.
Right now, the city is staffed 2 ALS ambulances with 2 paramedics each, so 4 paramedics. However, our entire department now, since we've had their latest retirees, all 27 firefighters, including myself and the marshal, are paramedic trained.
Okay.
But once we only staff 2 ambulances, and then we rely on outside help. That's what was mentioned by Mr. Gilson and in the article about the increase in run volume, that we're relying on outside agencies to take care of take that extra call volume.
Okay, so we have third-party ambulatory services that...
Typically, it depends on the severity of the call. If it's an ALS call like we just had spoken of, we rely on a neighboring community such as Royal Oak to come assist us. If they're not available, then we typically do rely on a private ambulance company such as Superior, which is in Hazel Park.
And what percentage of the ambulance runs would we be utilizing private services?
I do not have that answer for you. I'd have to pull that data up for you.
That would be helpful.
Typically, the majority of the calls are through a Royal Oak assists us.
Hey, Chief,
that would be the majority.
This may be a couple months ago, but I ran into you at City Hall and you were covered in sweat because apparently you responded to a run in Birmingham and you were running up and down the 11 flights of stairs. How often does that happen when the fire chief has to put on his gear and
I'm not going to toot by. I will say though, every community's fire chief is responding more to emergency calls than they ever did before. Typically, the fire chief stayed in the office. That was his administrative duties. Nowadays, we are responding more because the call volume's there, so we're needed out there, so I'm not going to sit behind my desk when there's an emergency at hand.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This question might be redundant as to what I asked before, but is there an ideal, I know we've been understaffed for so many years, and that's scary. I know you're doing the best job you can. Our firefighters are exceeding all expectations and performances, but what would be more of an ideal staffing count for the fire department determined by our population, which is about 29,000? Well, is there an ideal number?
There's no ideal number per 1,000 population. However, the NFPA does set out professional standards for fire departments to meet, and then we also can benchmark ourselves against other neighboring communities that are similar to our size and similar to our response. So we could do that. We can do that, and we have done that. But there's no set standard. Typically, it's around 1, but that's not a set standard. But NFPA does have a professional qualification standards that's sort of the high standard for professional fire departments.
Okay.
You said, I'm sorry, I want to clarify. You were asking about the standard, and you said typically it's 1 per...
I'm just giving you a generalized.
Wait.
A generalized.
So generalized, sure, but you said 1, and that means 1 per 1,000 residents?
Well, this is a bench. I could tell you ours is like 1.8 right now, 0.81 per 1,000.
Per
1,000 residents.
Okay. Sorry, Mrs. Scott.
We benchmarked that against our neighboring communities.
Okay.
And I have that data if you would like to have it, see it.
Is this predominant that everybody feels they're understaffed in terms of their fire department? Does this seem to be predominant through our area?
Yeah, as the deputy city manager mentioned, it's all throughout. Michigan municipalities are hurting for revenue. And with the underfunded that we get from the state, it's making it very difficult to increase staffing. And I think that's, I understand that.
Yeah. Do you find that there's less of an interest in people wanting to be firefighters or police officers, in fact?
I think over the years, yes, you've seen a decrease in people applying for the job. It's a little more difficult to meet the qualifications as it was a long time ago. But typically, with the cuts, it's difficult to get people interested in doing the job.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Just to clarify, it's sounding gloom and doom up here. Just to clarify as to where our response times are, as well as meeting the standards and the requirements of the amount of firefighters on duty. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, that we could obviously do better, but that we're relying on outside agencies and private companies to supplement when we do need those issues. But how does that affect our response times?
Well, our response time is still really fantastic. We are well under the benchmark for especially EMS response and fire response. We got 2 relatively close fire stations to each other that serve a very small, the 7 square miles of the city. So our response time is fantastic, and our neighboring communities have staffing where we rely on them to assist us when we don't have anyone to go. That helps us with that response time.
In that response time, obviously you might not have the off-the-cuff answer, but as far as how it relates to the neighboring communities who may be either better or worse as far as staffing goes?
I do not know that answer, how we compare for response time, but I know we're well under the standard for response time for EMS and fire.
And what do you define well under?
Typically for an EMS call, for ALS EMS call, the standards, it's under NFPA. That's who sets the standard. I think 8 minutes for EMS, and we're well under 4.
Awesome.
So half that.
Thank you.
Mr. Myers, recently you told me about the city's insurance services office rating. Can you explain that? Because I believe that's directly related to the fire department.
Oh, absolutely. Well, fire and DPS
Fire
for water
and water.
pressure, but yes,
Yeah,
fire
and water.
Greg was intimately involved in that, along with Joe for the last 6 months.
Yep. So there are many categories into that ISO insurance survey that we go through, and they rate us from our water supply to our maintenance on our hydrants to our staffing to our training. So there's many categories they rate you on, and they give you a score, and then they compile that score and they give you an overall rating, which insurance companies use to set insurance rates for your community.
Pressure is a very important
pressure,
component of
correct.
that throughout the city, too.
Any other questions for fire?
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor. So Chief, again, I don't want to put you on the spot either. Before my time, there was a report that was done about a staffing type report that was done by an independent agency that said some important things. I don't know how many years ago it was, but do you think it's worthwhile to consider another type of report?
I would encourage it, but it would be up to the council and the manager if they want to pursue that. But a lot of the stuff in the report is still valid.
I'm sorry?
The information in that report is still valid. So it can be reviewed, that can be looked over and read through. And
City Manager Myers, what year was that?
We think 2007.
So it's about 10 years old.
5, so yeah, it's at least 10 years.
And Chief, you said that it's still valid?
some of the information is valid in there, but they talk about staffing levels and what the city should be at. We'd be more than happy to share that with you, or we can get it.
Your Honor, we'd be happy to give all the council a copy of that report.
Please.
All right, thank you.
And then with your recommendations after reviewing it, too?
I'm sorry.
When we get the report, that 2007 report, can you give your synopsis of what your opinion is?
If you would like that, yes.
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I could add, I would also like the cost that it was to commission that report, is the current cost that it would be to commission that report if we were to run it again.
Your Honor, we can try for a rough estimate on that, and that would have to go through an RFP process for professional service if we did it again. So.
Rough estimate would be perfect.
Any other questions for fire? Thank you, Chief. Okay, we'll resume back on page 24, community development expenditures. Page 26, streets.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Just a quick question on 25. There's a line item for computer supplies, various supplies, as well as large format monitors. Just a question as to what we mean by large format. Are we talking, just larger in screen? Just like a little bit more definition on that.
Evening, Mayor, City Council. As you know, we're moving towards electronic permit applications and plan reviews, and these are larger format screens that will allow us to review plans roughly in the same size as they come in a blueprint, so roughly the 36-inch to 40-inch range, so that you're actually looking at a full-size document. We'll also have them available for our weekly site plan review meetings, so we can move towards elimination of blueprint.
That $1,000 cost is directly related to the city goal that the council approved.
I'm just curious if we're looking into touchscreen monitors to be able to zoom in and out easier.
We already have a couple in the office. We have not gone to the touchscreen, but that's something we can look at. But right now, we're in the initial phases of deployment to make sure that they serve the function and work for both individual workstations as well as for our entire site plan review committee. So we can look into that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Question of Mr. Schaefer. Don't leave yet. I noticed that one of the key issues is that we're going to include funding for a part-time social media intern position in the department. So tell me, basically, what kind of tasks and what media will they be covering, and what information do you think is important that should be sent out to the media?
Your Honor, before we get into that funding of the social media intern, we have the intern. That's not a new position. We're incorporating it into our personnel schedule after a year. That's Mr. Lutz, Kaz Lutz. But I'll let Jim take it.
What do you think is important? important that we should know?
He performs a variety of functions. He works in conjunction with Linda Williams on maintaining the city's webpage and the social media function. He also assists in a lot of the events that we do to film and then upload that information. He is the person that handles the media transfer of like the city council meetings to get them up on the web and cable and et cetera. So it's the technical backside of the social media world that he assists in.
And Your Honor, for the last few months or so, he's been a key player in our website redesign, being part of the team.
Right, he's doing a good job.
Our photo contest that we just went through, that was him as well. So.
Right. Also, Mr. Schaefer, I'm not sure if this is your department, but I would imagine it is. In terms of aerial photography, that's usually done by Oakland County, isn't it?
Well, these days the world is a lot different with aerial photography. We maintain the ability with Google Earth now and Street View and so on to have pretty much instantaneous access to aerial photography. It's not like the old days where we had to rely on every 5 or 10 years somebody would fly the community. Those days are long gone. And so we have pretty much, there's multiple media formats that we can go to, and from a historical standpoint, we have excellent digital access to historical aerial photography, and we can, with a few clicks of the mouse now, we have access to decades-old aerial photography all the way up until very recent photography.
So the only ones I was able to access were from 1947 off my computer, but does it go back farther than that now?
I don't know off the top of my head how far back, but Oakland County maintains a database of historical photography. I don't know offhand whether it goes pre-47 or not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions for community development? All right, what about streets or solid waste on page 27, 28? Recreations on page 29.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I see that one of the council goals was the part-time Parks and Rec person that's in the budget. I want to thank Councilman Gettings. He championed that over and over again, so I'm glad to see that in the budget.
Very happy, Mr. Soltis, very happy.
I'm sure you are.
Your Honor, while we're on the recreation subject, too, I want to let you know that staff and I had a meeting today on several issues with the Oakland County Parks and Rec Executive Director and the Deputy. And, of course, we brought up the other council goal of the voucher program, indicated we look forward to working with them, pending budget approval, of course, but they seem very interested in partnering with us to try to make that a reality.
That's good.
Your Honor, while we're talking, the part-timer, what's the process or timeline with that? Can you give us a general idea?
Yeah, you're going to get the work plan on that. It'll be very close to July. We're certainly going to start the process before July, but it'll be just like a standard personnel recruitment where we advertise, we come up with a job description, set the rate officially, and get the word out electronically on all the media and our normal recruitment sources, and then take the applications as they come in, screen and interview, and so standard process.
Other recreation comments? What about Nature Center, page 30? Or Parks from page 31? Senior Citizens Center, page 32?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So, City Manager Myers, did we happen to slide in a couple $100 for that trip to Lansing? Did we slide in a couple extra $100 for the trip to Lansing?
Your Honor, no, that is not funded. We did approach the Senior Advisory Board, and we did not get a favorable response.
Did not?
No, sir.
Strike two.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I would love to hear a little bit about the two line items under the parks machinery and equipment, the play structures at Wildwood, replacing those, as well as the replacement of swing sets throughout the city parks. I think that any of the general public who might be watching would love to hear about that.
Your Honor, Mr. Vitale is here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. In terms of the two items budgeted in parks that you mentioned, Councilman Bliss, as you know, the MDNR grant for the Wildwood Playground replacement has been shipped to the state. We will get our first review this fall. That gives us a grace period to get them back any documents or anything we're missing that would be based towards the scoring criteria for that grant. And then we will hear the official word probably about January 1st of next year. So that project is pending. We anticipate that we will get the funding for that. We've got the money on our end. So that's a good project to come. If that project is approved, we will go through the process of taking that to the Parks and Rec Board. We will get input from them on a playground and what the concept is there, and then we will mobilize that from there.
Joe, Your Honor, Joe, I think it's safe to say we're looking at two structures, a playscape for 5 to 12 and a totscape for 2 to 5 as part of the configuration? Or?
Well, the grant application covers a 5 to 12 structure, and that can be vetted later through Parks and Rec how we want to build this thing. But the concept is, most people think the 2 to 5 kids, they get on the 5 to 12 structure anyways, so maybe maximize that, but that's something we'll certainly discuss once approved. The other item that you mentioned was the swing sets throughout the parks. As you know, if you've been in our parks, we've got 12 parks in our network. We've got a lot of aging swing sets, and it certainly warrants replacement. So I'm hoping to stretch our dollars. Maybe it's not 5 swing sets, but more, but we'll see when the bidding comes in on that. So I anticipate replacing those will be a very nice project to do.
Thank you. Any more comments on parks or senior center? All right, page 33 is the library. Page 55, insurance. Page 36, pension obligation debt service. All right, next fund is the Major Streets Fund. On page 37, any comments on revenues to Major Streets? All right, 38 is Major Streets expenditures. Questions on construction or maintenance? Page 40 is traffic service. 41, winter maintenance for Major Streets. Page 42, administration. Page 43, county roads. Next fund is the local street fund on page 44. Any questions on local street revenues? All right, page 45 is local street appropriations. Any questions on construction of local streets? Or page 46, maintenance of local streets. Page 47, traffic service. Or page 48, winter maintenance. Page 49, administration or transfers out. Any questions on the Parks Maintenance and Improvement Fund on page 51? What's the balance? Is there a fund balance, a running fund balance?
It's about $630,000, I think.
Oh, okay. But what was the original amount?
850.
850? Okay.
Your Honor, one of the...
I'm sorry, Ben, what, I can't hear you.
The purchase of the Hardesty?
Yes, okay.
Okay, any questions from the Parks and Maintenance Fund, page 51 or 52?
Your Honor?
Yes.
So I think that purchase was, what, probably 2006, 7 in that realm? So it's been about 10 years since we've made any acquisitions in that. Do we have a small list of potential targets over the next couple of years where that might be a potential?
Your Honor, I mean, certainly there are several parcels abutting or near Friendship Woods that we have been keeping our eye on for some time. Those and some other projects, but in order to extrapolate that fund out, remember the major expenditures have to do with do still pertain to the Red Oaks soccer complex. The maintenance, or a lot of the expenditures go to the county, and we do project out at least 25 years to try to keep the funds south. But yes, there are a couple of possibilities.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Parks Maintenance Fund? All right, page 53 is the Downtown Development Authority. Page 55, the drug forfeiture fund. Page 57 is the community improvement fund. Any questions? Page 59, special assessment revolving. Page 61, the fire station bond. Page 63, water and sewer revenues. Any questions for this? Or page 64, appropriations for water and sewer. The next several pages are water and sewer. Does anyone have any comments for the next, it's like 6 or 8 pages for water and sewer expenditures? Okay, that brings us to jump up to page 76. That's the motor pool fund. Any questions for revenues or appropriations? Page 78, Department of Public Service. Any question on the revenues? And page 80, the new Chapter 20 drain debt service. Any question on the revenues or the expenditures?
Your Honor, there is one typo there that we will fix between now and May 8th. Under property taxes, it should say taxes real Chapter 20 drain debt and taxes personal Chapter 20 drain debt, not fire station bonds. That's just a misprint, but no change to the dollars. It's just a descriptive typo.
Thanks for pointing that out. All right, so that concludes the line item budget. I know I marched through that quickly. Did anyone want to go back and ask any questions from the line item? All right, I guess we'll just open it up to general comments or questions. Any changes? Seems kind of quiet because we've been so hands-on with the goal process this year. All right. I guess I'll do a round of closing comments. I mean, I'm not going to force you. I'm probably not going to say much, but Mr. Corbett, do you have any closing comments?
The only comment I'm going to make is just my normal, and at the risk of being the stay off the lawn guy, old guy. I think this was great work budget-wise. I think that if you spend any amount of time examining the money coming into the community, you realize it's at best problematic. Between all the changes in Lansing, between and don't forget, I keep reminding, every time I hear somebody, we had it the other night, somebody came to the microphone, or was it the night before, the meeting before, and said, well, now that the city's budget is improving, and I cringe every time I hear that, because we're losing money with the loss of the property tax, with the personal tax, which has not been fully restored, and we have no promises to when it is, with the effect of the Headley Amendment on revenue, and with any number of other changes that have been put upon us from above. I just urge caution. There are times it doesn't feel like that gets followed much, but I just urge caution. It's a good budget. I think we'll be fine going through the next year. What the future holds, I'm not sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Bliss?
Yes, Your Honor. I say this at a safe distance off of your lawn. But I'm also really ecstatic about this budget. I think the goals process and the communication at the IOI innovation sessions with the department heads and what rolled up to us. I mean, we didn't have a lot to vet. I'm really happy that there wasn't a line item like the replacement chairs last year. Every one of the questions that we had led me to believe two things. Number one, that we did cumulatively an outstanding job, that staff worked tirelessly and put out a very, very good budget. But it also tells me the amount of work that we have to do. As Councilman Corbett said, we're getting hammered from all sides. The state isn't really helping. Our unfunded liabilities keep growing, and we have a lot of optimism. We're making every dollar count for 2 or 3 or 5 sometimes. We're doing as much work as we can with limited staffing, with prioritizing what gets replaced and how. And I think that council and staff, I think we're all asking the right questions. Every time we spend a dollar, we try to make certain that that dollar is spent wisely, because we know that one of our residents gave it to us. And I think as we move forward, our challenge is to weigh the hope and innovation and all of these great ideas that we have with the economic and financial realities that we're currently, pressed with. And I think we did a great job of that on this budget, so I want to commend everybody who put in even 1 hour of work on this, because it's a phenomenal budget, because it weighs both. We have almost a few $100,000 worth of goals that are tangible, that are impactful. About 70% of that jumps and is attributed to public safety, which is absolutely key. We've been able to work out very creative solutions for how to handle things like adding staffing to our parks, as was mentioned by Councilman Soltis earlier. Councilman Gettings has been fighting tirelessly for getting some additional staffing there, and we were able to carve out some money for an intern, much like we did with the social media intern last year that we've finalized and put into the budget this year. So we're getting creative, and I think we're going to have to keep doing that until something either changes with Lansing or enough time has gone by where we've been able to more permanently solve these issues. But I'm greatly appreciative of all of staff's efforts. I'm greatly appreciative of my peers on council, all of the great questions that all of you asked. I just frankly think that this is one of those great round of applause budgets that you also have to caution to say, well, now we have to live up to it. Now we have to keep asking the questions, because we know that the economic realities are as such where we have to still find ways to save money, because there's going to be something along the way, like the fence and like the porta potties and like the social media intern this year, that become a priority and a need. So we're going to have to still find ways to save within this budget as we go through the year, to be able to appropriate where necessary. So I guess enthusiastic and cautionary at the same time, but a very good budget cycle. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gettings?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just want to thank the staff, the city manager, Melissa. You guys all did a great job on this budget. There's a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of ideas. If you could thank all your employees, the department heads. I'm sure it was all a team effort from each department, but there was a lot of time put into this. And I want to thank Councilman Bliss, because when we were having our discussions down at the soccer building, trying to get another person in the rec department was kind of going down, and he came up with the idea for a possible intern, so it didn't totally fall off the table. So I want to thank Councilman Bliss for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Sherman?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
City Clerk, Cheryl Prince?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Clark?
The only thing I can say is the city's running smooth, thanks to the staff, mayor, council. Let's keep it that way. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Scott?
Yes, I would like to thank the staff who spent any even small amount of time on the budget, because it's very well done, very easily understandable. It's 323 pages long, in small print, I might add, and that takes months, because it's not just the recent work you've done, it's thinking about what we need all year round and looking for opportunities. So I applaud you on the excellent presentation that you have. They will be put in Historical Commission, so you'll be there for all time, we hope. But I also wanted to thank our firefighters for being here tonight, and to our chief of police and our fire chief, don't give up trying to get those extra funds, because I'll be there to support that. I know that you guys do a wonderful job, but you could always use more staffing. And whatever I can do to help you do that, I will be there. Also, Rosalind, thank you very much for the beautiful job you do at the library. I think it's getting better and better. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Gettings.
Just want to thank Joe Vitale because he was behind the idea of an extra person in the rec department, and he put together some good facts, so I didn't want to miss him. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Scott, did you have any more comments?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Soltis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo my colleagues, too. It's always a difficult process through the budget. I mean, there's only so much resources that we have, and we have to make, I mean, we made some difficult decisions when we had that meeting at the soccer room. We had to make a decision between having a police officer for the Troy SIU and the gun range. You know, and we all stood, and I'm very proud that we decided to go with the Troy SIU unit. I'm a little disappointed that we can't do the gun range, of course. But you know, I think it's budgeted for next budget cycle. Is that correct? 2018 or.
Yeah, I wouldn't, Your Honor, I wouldn't use the term budgeting since that's an annual process, but it is in the capital improvement plan.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It's at least listed. So we'll keep working on that, Chief. And I look forward to the staffing report from the fire chief, and I want to thank everybody for the hard work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Staff did a phenomenal job preparing this budget. I know you go over every penny of this $50 million multiple times. And I know City Council goes over every penny of this $50 million time and time again. And it's very reassuring how professionally organized the documents are and how clear your spoken presentation is. And, you know, as a member of the public, the way you present the budget is clear, it's coherent, it's progressive, it's you know, and truly what's amazing is how the average tax bill for the average homeowner is, what, $860 some dollars. So for let's just say $900 a year, look at what the residents get. You know, full-time professional police and fire, and then all the other fabulous other services we provide. It's really remarkable how far we stretch the taxpayer dollar here. But yeah, Councilman Corbett's right, Mayor Pro Tem Bliss, everyone's right how, you know, the state just keeps pummeling us. I mean, to lose $600,000 from personal property tax, you know, just so a handful of businesses can save a couple thousand dollars. I mean, that's $600,000 that's lost that we're not getting back. That could go, you know, that could go to more firefighters, more police officers. That's gone. And then for the state to raise revenue by raising the gas and weight tax, so all of us have to pay more at the pump. I mean, that's just kind of a weird way to move money around at the state level. And then just the fact that taxable values are artificially kept low with Headley Amendment and Prop A. It's tough. But thank you to staff. I'm optimistic about the next year and fulfilling these goals week by week by week. I forgot to recognize another elected official, District Court Judge Keith Hunt, who joined us tonight, as long as the other department heads. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you for serving our city and the district. And is there any further business before City Council tonight? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned. Good night.